Hey everybody, it's Mr. Winkle, and I have a cool at-home experiment that you can do. Now, I didn't come up with this. This is an old experiment. This is one I usually do in class, but I've changed it just a little bit so you can do it at home. And what we're going to do is we're going to do DNA extraction. We're going to actually take DNA out of some organisms so you can actually see the DNA. Now you're not going to be able to see individual strands, the double helix, but you're going to see the globs of DNA all kind of tangled together. So what we're going to use are some really simple supplies that you can get at the grocery store or the hardware store. I'll just go through what you need. The first thing you need is water. We're going to need some hot water, just hot water that comes out of your faucet. You don't even have to microwave it or anything else like that. You're going to need a small clear jar or glass. It's important that it is made out of glass and that it is clear so you can see what's going on. What we're going to use for our source of DNA is wheat germ, and wheat germ looks like this. And what's really important that we have to remember, this is raw wheat germ. Now, wheat germ is the center part of the wheat kernel. You guys know the word germinate. It's the embryo, it's the part of the wheat kernel that actually grows. And this is raw wheat germ, which means that it's just ground up and we haven't done anything to it. A lot of times at the grocery store you can buy roasted or toasted wheat germ that's been cooked. If you do that, the experiment won't work. So you need to make sure that it's raw, and you may need to go to a co-op to get some of this. You don't need very much of it, but it's important that it's raw wheat germ. So that's going to be our source of DNA today. We're going to need some Joy dishwashing detergent. And yeah, it is pretty important that it is Joy. Joy works the best. And the other thing that we're going to need is some alcohol. This is isopropyl alcohol like you could get at the Walgreens or CVS. What's going to be really important is the strength of it, the concentration. Notice that this is 91%. Okay, sometimes you can get 70%, but we want to get the good stuff, the 91%. In addition to that, we'll just need a few tools. We'll need a stir stick. I just got a chopstick here. You could use a pencil. I would probably not use a spoon, and I'll explain why a little bit later. We'll need a 1/2 cup measuring cup. We'll need a 1 tablespoon measuring spoon, and we'll need a 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. And if you've got all of that stuff, we're good to go. So let's talk about how we're going to do this. All right, the first thing you want to do is to get a 1/2 cup of hot water. And this can be just as hot as your faucet gets. You don't need to put it on the stove or put it in the microwave. Run the faucet until the water gets as hot as it'll get. And we're going to start off with 1/2 cup of that. And I'm going to dump that into my container, my little jar here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the wheat germ. I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of wheat germ. So I'll just put in 1 level tablespoon into my water right there. And then I'm going to take my stir stick and I'm going to stir this constantly for 3 minutes. So you can watch your clock, your watch, or use your phone. And we're just going to stir this up for 3 minutes straight. All right, so I've just finished stirring my water and raw wheat germ mixture for 3 minutes, and it should look something like this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the Joy detergent. And so this will be 1/2 teaspoon, which is pretty small. And I will fill up my spoon like this until it's nice and level and dump it in. But you notice that a lot of the Joy still sticks to the spoon. So what I want to do is I actually want to dip it in my solution and just kind of carefully just kind of dunk it up and down. I don't really want to stir it. I just want to kind of dip it up and down just to get all the detergent rinsed off. So now you can see that I don't have any of the sticky joy on my spoon anymore. Now what I want to do is I want to let this sit for 7 minutes. And once every minute, I want to give it a really gentle stir just to kind of keep it from all clumping up on the bottom. I want to stir it just a couple times like that. The reason I want to be so careful is because we know that DNA is really long and skinny. And if I stir it really hard, it's going to be like putting my DNA in a blender and I'm going to get just little chunks and it's not going to work out very well. So let's set the timer for 7 minutes. And once every minute, just give it a couple gentle stirs to keep it from settling on the bottom. And then we'll talk about the final step. All right, so our 7 minutes have gone by. And our wheat germ solution should look something like this. Our final step is to add the isopropyl alcohol. And we're going to add 2 tablespoons of the alcohol. And we're going to try to add it very, very slowly. We don't want it to kind of dump in and splash. We're going to pour it in as slowly and gently as we can. So I'm going to measure out 2 tablespoons of the isopropyl alcohol. And then very carefully pour that into my solution here. There's 1. There's 2. So you'll notice now that there's a little bit of kind of a faint white layer at the top, and that's going to be where our DNA is going to start collecting. What we need to do now is we need to move this to a safe place, and we don't want to shake it, stir it, touch it, move it for an hour. We just want to let it sit completely still all by itself for an hour, and then we'll come back and check out what we've got. All right, so after an hour, you'll notice that there's some sort of white stringy stuff appearing in the top part of the container. See if we can give you a side view here. That white stringy stuff is actually the DNA and some of the associated proteins with the DNA. Now, you're not seeing individual strands of the double helix, you're seeing globs of them all tangled together. And what you can do is you can take a bent paper clip like this, and if you are really careful, you can kind of dunk it down in there and kind of scoop up some of that DNA on your paper clip. And there you have it, some homemade DNA extraction. Might be fun to try this with some fruits and vegetables. If you grind those up, you could probably do the same thing. But this is Mr. Winkle signing off.